Hi guys, and welcome back to the podcast. Today I'm delighted to welcome on Coach Shane Rice. Now, Shane, thanks a million for jumping on.
Yes, Robbie, how's things?
Not so bad, not so bad. How are you getting on yourself?
All good, all good. Keeping quiet. Beautiful Friday morning here, so looking forward to the weekend.
Yeah, exactly. I suppose for those who don't know, do you want to give a bit of an introduction to yourself, what you do, what you're working at the minute, and I suppose where you started?
Yeah, so currently right now I founded GAA Periodization, which is an online coaching app designed for GAA players. I'm currently the S&C coach for Monaghan Ladies GAA team. I'm also on the field coach, so I do a lot of the gym work and also a lot of the pitch work as well. And I've got my feet in other little bits and pieces. Basically in the GAA world, that's kind of my niche, and that's kind of where I like to set myself into.
Very nice. I suppose going back to the start, where did you get started in it? How did you build it?
Yeah, so we're talking 2016, I guess. I was doing a business degree. I was always interested in business. I always knew that I wanted to work for myself, self-employed. Did the whole 9 to 5 thing. When I was in college, I wanted to do a business degree. So did a business degree. I was in my final year of business and was enjoying it, but didn't really know what business I wanted to go into. I was always big into GAA, love football. And the last year of my business, I said I'd love to do a part-time course in fitness. I was always someone that liked to go to the gym. I would, regularly watch a lot of people on YouTube, maybe, YouTubers in the States that were quite big into fitness, but they weren't really basing their fitness around field sports. So I kind of went down the S&C route and looked at a fitness course and did it alongside my business degree. That was 2016, and then in 2017 I made the jump to travel to Toronto. I wanted to work abroad on the floor in a gym. I just wanted to, obviously, like any young person now, they want to travel. So I said, why not travel to either the States or Canada and get great experience. So from 2017 right up to 2020, I was on the floor in a gym called Good Life Fitness. Good Life Fitness is the biggest gym in Canada. It's the most well known, and I was right downtown Toronto. So the experience I got there was incredible. Worked with Gen Pop, worked with some athletes as well, mainly in ice hockey and stuff, and then made the trip home in 2020, just before COVID. And I think COVID probably came at a good time for me. So I always wanted to set up an online business, especially after doing the experience on the floor. And then I just kicked up GAA Periodization, and the online got very popular during COVID, and we got really, really busy. And thankfully, each year since that, we've grew and grew.
Excellent. Yeah, I'd say probably the first place I came across you was obviously the GAA Periodization, but what kind of cemented it? Obviously, we've a close mate, or we've similar friends, but was the Get Over program, or the Get Over Instagram page. That was an excellent idea. How did that come about?
Yeah, that's something that probably started back in 2018, 2019. On my own personal page, I was playing football over in Toronto, and I would regularly have the games recorded. Football matches do get recorded, and at any point I scored, I might put it up on my own page and hashtag Get Over. And people started to buy into it a little bit, and I said, well, I'm actually starting to get DMs here on Instagram with other people across Ireland, across the world, putting the ball over the bar, whether it's in a match or just whether it's out on the pitch, and I would repost them. And the first thing that caught my attention is, wow, the amount of shares and the amount of views these videos are getting for 8, 9, 10-second clip of someone kicking the ball over the bar. And I goes, right, sir, I will try and do one club from every county. So we started off with Armagh. We went through every club, so there was one score for every club. They went through Tyrone, and then you know what Tyrone's like. They are very competitive with each other. The scores kept coming in. And I think we eventually got through a good few counties before we came to Cork. And Cork was the most amount of clubs within a county, and it just got out of hand. So then I started off Instagram page with Get Over. And it's probably something that I've actually fell off the wagon posting recently. And anytime anybody mentions it, maybe I don't understand how big of a attraction it got, and maybe something that I should probably get back on. But it was really fun for the for the first 2 or 3 years of it, where crazy amount of DM submissions would come in, and yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, hey, it was an excellent idea for both, I suppose, promotion, but at the same time, people kind of promoting their own clubs, because you saw it from all sides of the country and even all sides of the world, as you said. I suppose that kind of led you into the GAA periodization, did it, or did that one come first and that came over, or how did you work that?
The get over was really just a bit of fun. There was no service there; it was just literally getting attention. But like I said, you would maybe have never came across my page without the get over, and then maybe my previous clients would have never seen my page, and that kind of brought the attraction. So I guess there was a domino effect. You come on to see the get overs, and then you kind of dived in a bit deeper into what I was really all about, and that was obviously the S&C side of things. And maybe that's what grew periodization from there. So
yeah. What is it exactly now? What is the periodization, GAA periodization? Is it a...
Yeah, so I'll give you a bit of background. So whenever I was in Toronto on the floor in Good Life Fitness, obviously there's tons and tons of methods of training, right? So some people would not agree with periodization. Some people would say nothing is as simple as that. Nothing flows as well as that. But what we did in Toronto is we would break it into blocks. So you have your cycles, your mesocycles, your smaller cycles. But what they did is we would work within a 12-month cycle of a client. So I would have a client signs up for me on the floor for 12 months, and we'd break that into 8 blocks of training. And I really enjoyed the blocks of training because it gave me a clear indication. This is what we're going to do for 6 weeks. And then after this 6 weeks, we're going to do a retest of, let's say, body composition and whatnot. And then we'll do another 8 weeks, and we'll do another 8 weeks. And every block was different. And the client got more excited towards the end of each block because they were excited to see the next block.
Yeah.
And this opened up my mind thinking, oh, wow, in GAA, I just remember, you go back to pre-season, it's a really tough season. You don't really know what to do in the gym. A lot of young people are doing, hypertrophy or higher rep in season. And there's no real structure to someone's 12-month GAA season. Okay. So that kind of brought me into the world of setting up this GAA periodization, where any new clients or new players, GAA players, came on board, we would work within blocks. So it came from on the floor in Toronto and Good Life, because that's what they do. So I kind of just integrated into GAA style training, and it's worked great. I've had clients that have with me now 2, 3, 4 years since starting that style of training, and anybody that starts within that style of training, they really enjoy it because they see structure throughout the year.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think it's an excellent idea as well. I know, as you said there, like some people agree with periodization, others don't. I lean on the side of I agree with it. I think it's especially when there's someone who's coming in and they don't know what they're doing at all. It's all right for us if we kind of have an idea of what we're doing and how we're working out. But as you just mentioned there, I don't know how many players I've come across, even like they said, that get injured and they jump on board with me. And it could be in the middle of championship, and you look at their program and it's a completely hypertrophy based program, and you're wondering why you're getting muscle tears or why you're getting muscle injuries all the time. So I think the fact that you're bringing light to that is a great idea, because too many guys are doing it. And I think it stems from being a young lad and just looking to get bigger a lot of the time, or not knowing what to do in the gym, and just looking lads up online, looking bodybuilders up and thinking bodybuilders are athletes. Have you noticed that as well? Do you notice that it's kind of starts from a young age, or?
Yeah, I mean, 99% of the fitness industry online, if you go looking for it as a young kid on YouTube, they're all going to be in that kind of aesthetic focused workouts. And that's normal. I mean, the same thing happened for myself. When you're younger, you're looking at the likes of, companies like Gymshark, Alphalete, all those top guys who are trained for aesthetic purposes, and no harm to them. They're fantastic watch for entertainment, and their content is all 100% accurate and stuff. It's just that there's quite little S&C stuff, or let's say S&C influencers or people in the YouTube world that focus on that. So it's really, really important that if a young GAA player is looking to improve their GAA performance, they need to kind of go down the route of watching or following people that promote that.
Yeah, definitely. I suppose that kind of leads us on then to what you're doing at the moment. You're with the Monaghan ladies, and you're doing a bit of coaching. I know on Instagram you promote a lot of different I guess ways of structuring training sessions, how to include drills, stuff like that. what type of stuff are you doing with the Monaghan ladies? Is it strictly in the gym? Do you come out onto the pitch as well? I know with intercounty teams, you kind of have to be hesitant to what you talk about. So whatever you are allowed to share.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, absolutely. So I came on board last Christmas, January. So the main role, first of all, was the gym work, the S&C work. But it turns out that I did do all the S&C work, but I also did a lot of the on the pitch, you know, the coaching, taking the sessions, even the tactical stuff. So I really do enjoy the pitch side of things more than in the gym, probably because I've done my 4 or 5 years on the floor.
Yeah.
I like getting on the pitch and I like doing the tactical side of things. But in terms of the S&C stuff, it was some of the girls, people know listening to this in the GAA world, Monaghan went through a bit of a transition this year. They lost maybe 10 or 15 players that were on the other side of their playing career. And we went through a rebuild. We had a lot of 18, 19, 20, 21 year olds coming into the panel that maybe never seen a gym before. So that was a big challenge for me. And I had to be quite I had to watch what I was doing in the gym. I had to understand their previous history, their injury history, their experience in the gym. So it was a challenge that way. But I would do a lot of the pitch stuff as well. We are always in the gym once or twice a week, whether it's off season or in season. And we're taking a bit of a break now. Obviously, the intercounty season's finished, and then hoping to get back up and running closer to Christmas again.
Lovely, lovely. I suppose we'll kind of deep dive or go from that way along into what I wanted to ask you as well. And I mentioned to you at the start, kind of looking at the way the sport has changed over the last couple of years, because it has obviously changed a lot.
Mm-hmm.
What have you noticed changed most? Now we can look over the last 5 to 10 years. What have you noticed that has changed the most in the intercounty game as well as the club game, I suppose? And then after that, I suppose, how do you change the training sessions that you have or that you have with whatever teams you're working with? Because I know you do kind of jump in and out with other teams as well, and giving seminars and that. How has that kind of changed your approach to the game?
Obviously players have gotten bigger, stronger, faster. Physical demands has went up, you know. So we have to understand if all teams, all intercounty teams are getting, you know, up to that level, that you can't fall behind. So the what you do in the gym is going to be crucial. What fitness testing we do at the start of the year, how we improve that fitness. Of course, the big one is injury prevention. My job is to make sure that players are injury free throughout the year, and we improve performance. That's the number 2 thing. So, you look at the demands over the last 5 or 10 years. The players are, body composition has gotten better. They're bigger, more muscle mass. They're able to move quicker. Even look at the hurlers. The Limerick hurlers are a prime example. Yeah. How far ahead they are in the S&C. Their conditioning is outrageous. So that's the way. The S&C has probably become more and more into it. And if you look 10, 15 years ago, they were maybe, let's say, a little bit smaller. So in that spectrum, that everything has kind of went up, you know. So that's just talking about the condition side of things, the physical side of things, not even talking about the tactical side of things. Obviously that's come on leaps and bounds as well. So it's obviously developed.
Yeah, that's a great point actually, because like looking at the Limerick hurlers, they're like, you could put them into any sport at this stage and they would dominate, and it's looking like and from a physical perspective, but also from a tactical perspective as well. And their interplay, their team play is unbelievable. I suppose, how, looking at football specific, because I know now, do you work in hurling as well, or is it mostly football?
No, it's all football. I actually haven't worked with any hurling counties or teams. Probably just because I'm up here in Ulster, hurling wouldn't be a big sport, especially Monaghan and other teams around. So football would be my go-to. But I wouldn't imagine that we're talking at any major difference between the two. I mean, I wouldn't really look at coaching. I mean, you're still looking at your speed work, you're still looking at your conditioning, your fitness. The more studies that come out, the amount of time you actually are on the ball is crazy low. So you actually, I know a lot of coaches would say they want to do a lot of fitness work with the ball, but then you got to flip it a little bit and go, well, you actually are on the ball so little throughout a game. So I don't think there's a big change between her and football in terms of the S&C world. So just answer your question involved, but I wouldn't change anything if it was,
No, that's 100%. I suppose then looking at a training session, how are you structuring them at the minute? Because I know you were talking about your speed work, your agility stuff. How do you build a training session, or how do you think about it?
Yeah, well, right now I'm a big believer, or I really, really enjoy primer sessions. Just to go back on the gym side of things, in season, your main focus is on the pitch, keeping injury free, being well recovered, and being ready for the pitch. Too many people probably would try to squeeze in 4 or 5 gym sessions around hitting the pitch 3 days a week. If you're on the pitch, twice a week of training on a game at the weekend, then it's going to be very hard to get enough volume in the gym without damping your recovery. So what we do is I would do a primer session. I would take girls into the gym for about not even 40, 35 minutes. And that gives us an opportunity to try and get some strength work done, injury prevention work done, and also hit the pitch. So they've worked really well. The girls love it. It gives us an opportunity to hit the gym collectively rather than the girls breaking up throughout the week. So, and I'd rather if the girls can focus on recovery outside of the training days. And then we would go into our pitch work, regular dynamic warm up, and usually just do the ramp style warm up. And then we would go into our speed work. Now, speed work, any young coaches listening to this, it can be a tricky one with team sports. If you have an individual athlete and you're doing, let's say, individual sessions in your program and individual sessions, well, then you can go a bit deeper. But when you're working with 30 to 40 players at once, it's very hard to give the accurate rest time, work on technique, because they have to do an hour session of skills stuff, small-sided games, tactical work. So the only sprint work we would do really is your 10-meter bills and the 10-meter flies, 20-meter, and it would only be maybe 2 to 4 sprints, but it's got to be max effort. And we're not necessarily looking, obviously, at being 100% accurate with the rest times, because if we were, we would be there all day, So it's really about exposing them to high-speed running, which is going to be important for hamstring injury prevention as well. So it's very important, because usually in matches and in training, in small-sided games, you never hit top speed. You don't hit top speed in a game. Whether you think you might be running hard, you rarely will hit top speed. So it's very important that we expose us to that top speed as early as trainers we can.
Yeah. Okay. And then I suppose when you're going into your small-sided games, what's the thought process around that? Are you breaking down different parts of the game? You kind of get
believer in I'm a big believer in playing as much football in the session as you possibly can. Okay. I wouldn't say I don't believe in drills. I just try to keep the drills. I like to just throw them into small-sided games, whether it's 7v7, whether it's 10v10, 15v15. We're up to championship now. I'm also the manager of my club team in Scotstown. So right now we're doing a lot of 15v15, while breaking it up into, let's say, 7-minute games, bringing them in for a little bit of tactical work for a minute or two, and then letting them get back into the 15v15 or smaller sided games. So I would usually run straight into those style of drills rather than keeping it to, your hand passing drill, your kick passing drill. I like to throw all the skills all in at once in a game format, if that makes sense.
Okay, so do you mean like literally just run your 15v15 and just ref it as a normal game, and then to come in and kind of talk through your tactics then and go back out and see if you can implement them, is it?
Yeah, I mean, if I have 30 players, brilliant, we can do that. But I would also have conditions on it. So it's condition games too. So it's not going to be just regular. I might have, one team is extra defenders to mimic sweepers. I might have 10 kickouts, and they have a certain time to get it out past the halfway line, all these different conditions within it. So rarely will we just do a 15v15 like an in-house game. That would be just happen once every couple of weeks. But we would put conditions on certain players. We would have certain conditions on certain teams, whether it's the A team against the B team. So I'm a big believer in as much football as you possibly can, because I'm still a player myself and I know what I enjoy and I know what my teammates enjoy too. So
Yeah.
I stay clear of the drills really.
Yeah, oh, that's fair. That's fair. I'd be the same as well. There's nothing worse than just going up and down the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
Uh, I suppose then looking at it, like from my perspective, anyone that jumps on board with me, they're usually getting a recurrent injury or kind of trying to get back into training because the same thing keeps happening to them over and over again. Now it could be like an Achilles is something I'm noticing massively this year.
Yeah.
Gilmore's grind. Now I think the Achilles is probably coming back to the fact that league championship, they haven't had it the last couple of years and now they're running through a full year of it. But managing that in season and kind of building strength around it and trying to get back to I suppose performance and get back into the game. But without talking to coaches and without having the player liaison with the coaches about what they have to do and what they're able to do, it's very difficult to get back into a game because a lot of the time people go from 0 and then they go just jump into those 15-a-side games 100%.
Yeah.
So I suppose what I'm looking at now is how do you incorporate injured players into your training sessions at the minute?
Yeah, so I would like to. I do really focus on having a good relationship with the physio. Okay, so I understand I got to stay in my lane too. Okay,
Yeah.
and that's really really important to distinguish that. It happens at professional levels. You know, the S&C guys aren't going to come in and program without consulting. You know, whether it's a physio. Okay, so we're really lucky within the county. We have a physio on board 24/7. You know, he's in the dressing room, so the player would see him or her first, and then I would have a chat with the physio what we need to do to get that player back up to where he or she needs to be. So honestly, I would probably leave a lot of the rehab stuff with the physio because they're hands-on, you know, and that maybe is because I'm doing a lot of the pitch work, like the actual tactical stuff as well. So I'm kind of not your typical S&C guy that just does the gym stuff, and I do a lot of the pitch stuff as well. So I have no problem supervising the rehab. That's okay, and advising with the physio what we need to do in terms of volume, in terms of load, in terms of intensity, in terms of RPE feedback from the player. So I would personally would not like to, you know, skip over the physio and do my own. I use a lot of the physio do a lot of it themselves.
Yeah, that's fair. I think as well to the young lads or anyone who's listening to this, I think that's a huge thing what you mentioned there about the communication side of things. Like you have to be going over and back. If you're just holding an injury in the background and you're not saying it and it's a week before championship then and then you come out and say it, well, for the last 4 weeks there, you could have structured your training slightly differently. That you could have been jumping in and out, but I suppose without talking to the manager, without talking to the physio and your S&C, it's very difficult for them to know that. They're just kind of watching you decline for the weeks. Have you seen that?
Yeah, no, it's absolutely. Some players would say nothing if they're if they feel they just need to get your session, but they need to understand that your recovery, like, you know, everybody is going to be recovered for a train session, and we would usually monitor GPSs and we would monitor their sleep. We would monitor just by chatting to them how recovered they are for train sessions. And some players will step out of run, let's say at the end, step out of tempo. They might do tempo work instead of maybe more intense stuff. So if you are a player listening and you maybe do suffer from injuries and you feel as if you just have to keep your mouth shut and you have to get through the training, you're not really doing yourself any benefit. And the manager, if they are understanding, which they all should be, they should be able to understand how to get the best out of you even when you have this injury. So I would have players in the coaching app that would have an injury. I would advise him or her to have a chat with the coach, and the coaches are usually very very understanding, and they're not missing out in game time because they're able to structure their week to allow them to fulfill the match at the weekend. Like, just for example, I have a girl there right now, a fantastic player, but she's really suffering with tendinopathy in the hamstring. Okay, so we can't expect her to train on Tuesday, train on Friday, and play on a Sunday. We have to be understanding. We might give her 25-30 minutes on a Tuesday, take Friday off, and then we can give her 40 minutes in the match. Okay, so you really have to have that communication, good relationship with your player and with your physio and with your S&C and with your coach. Without that communication, it just gets lost and it's not good for the player.
It's huge. And even for that example there, actually, that's a perfect example of it. Of someone who's dealing with a tendinopathy, like a hamstring tendinopathy, like they might not be able to do all the running, especially in a 15 or 7 and 7. but they
Yeah.
can still kick. You know, they can still do other sides of it. But if you're not talking to the person, if you're not talking to your coach, they're not going to have an idea of what you can and can't do. So I think that's actually a good example of it, is because there's a lot of people dealing with those tendinopathies at the moment. But just because you can't sprint doesn't mean you can't look at other aspects of the game and see what you can do there.
Absolutely. There's all the stuff that you can do. And if the coach doesn't understand that you have the issue, well, then the coach obviously, he might think that you're not, not trying hard enough or whatnot. So you just got to have that communication, really. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I suppose the last couple of things I wanted to chat about then are well, first off, I wanted to look at your kick out plans and how you train that, or how you work around that, because I know you're bullish on it on Instagram with different things. So I suppose starting off with that first, how do you look at kickouts? What are your thoughts around it? And then how do you incorporate that into a training session when you are taking a team?
Yeah, so kickouts obviously in the modern game, probably since Cluxton, early 2011 onwards, has developed the game. It's absolutely crucial. A lot of stats at the end of games, a lot of stats we see is all about kickouts. Retain your own kickout is huge, but not just retain your kickout. Where you're retaining the kickout, is it going short? Is it going long? How are you defending kickouts? A lot of the modern day game is all based around kickouts, and that's why the likes of Cluxton, Began, Niall Morgan, all these guys are so well known, so well known. So the reason why I started posting little plays and that is probably just maybe I would think some kick out knowledge is second knowledge to me, because I've worked with some great coaches. I'm been lucky enough to be my own club where I play has won, crazy amounts of championships in the last 10 years. And the coaches I've worked with are, at the high level. And there maybe some junior players, junior coach, maybe that hasn't had that experience in the past, that I can maybe try to help by making those posts. But in terms of kickouts, how do we retain a kickout? What do they do if they go zone? What do you do if they go player? And then the flip side of that is, how do we defend kickouts? Do we go player? Do we go zone? Do we concede? So it's about communication again throughout the team. If you're a player, communication with your coach, when to make those calls, when not to press. So maybe rambling on here a little bit, but just the kickouts are massive within the modern game, and coaches are really diving into them big time.
Yeah, they are huge. I suppose it is kind of like you're looking at it from a set play perspective in that. And I to be honest, I noticed from even from sidelines, like really you should have such an advantage on a sideline because you're a man up. But it's like people just kind of drop their guard when they're just nearly, as you said, they nearly concede a sideline. Have you noticed that a bit?
The way, just flip that as well, like the way the modern game is going right now, it's kind of going like NFL, and I've been saying that the last couple of years. And at the top level, the Kerry Dublin, it's already gone there. That there is literally a call or a set play for absolutely everything. Okay, so when there's a throw up, you best believe all the top teams have an exact set play. And when the ball goes on the sideline, there's an exact set play. When there's a transition from first phase from defense, there's a set play. So everything's broken into plays. Like in the NFL, there's a playbook. I know for a fact in the top level, football, Kerry, Dublin, Mayo, all those teams, there's a playbook for each player. Like they have to learn set plays. And long gone now at the top level is when there's a sideline and it's just, go with the flow, see what happens. You as a player are moving in a certain way that a play is going to develop. So, for example, in our girls, we would have a throw-up system. Each player is lined out at the start of a game and they have to move in a certain position to get a score from a throw-up. If there's a sideline in our defence, the ball will travel the weave in a set play and so on and so on. And it's absolutely crazy how you talk about development of the modern game. That's the way it's going, And a free kick, 45s, there's 45 in the ladies football, and majority of them, I haven't seen any top player put the ball over the bar to 45. If you actually score from 45 in ladies football, it's worth 2 points. So they haven't seen any player do that, but there would be so many set plays from the playbook that they would have to go through. And the same with men, they would have a set play if they need a goal from a 45 and stuff. So everything's about set plays in the modern game.
Yeah, geez, yeah, that's it is, and it's like, I suppose, basketball as well. It's the same idea. It's kind of come up run your play. If it doesn't work, back up, kind of reset and go again in another way. I kind of want to look a small bit around, like, let's say, defensive strategy, defensive structure, and then attacking strategy and attacking structure as well. I don't know. I know it's obviously going to be different for everybody, but do you favor like a zonal type of defense, or would you prefer man to man, or how do you look at that?
Well, the answer really is it depends. It depends on the opposition. It depends on the players that you have. It depends on who that +1 or +2 or +3. We see Meath and the ladies, they actually have a +4 at the back. Their coaches resigned, and they actually come out with some great stuff on Twitter, and they actually showed what they have been doing over the last couple of years, and they had 4+ at the back, so they perfected that really well. And personally, my style of approach and coaching is I flip that. I really love the attacking side of it, so I wouldn't see myself as a defensive type of coach. I would always try and see attack as the best line of defense. So I personally would only ever have like a +1 at the back, but only have a +1 if the opposition give me a +1. So if I have a number 6 or even number 2 or 4 cornerbacks, where they play a sweeper, and that just gives us a +1. So me personally, I personally don't go with a +1 or +2. I like to have faith in the players to win their own battle, but again, it depends on the opposition, depends on your own players. If the opposition, we came up against Meath this year, we knew we were going into a transition period. First round in the All-Ireland, we knew that we had to drop players back, and we kept them 13 scores. Obviously, we didn't get as many scores ourselves, but it really depends on the opposition and depends on the players you have. So if attack is your strength, then you got to play to your strengths.
Yeah, just to go back there for a second, because it just skipped out slightly. Okay. When you were saying that you go for a +1, who are you dropping back?
So so on that case, I'm only having a +1 if they drop back. So so if their number 11 decides to sweep, well, then that gives us a +1 at the back. So I'm never going into the mindset where I'm going to pull a forward back. You know what I mean? So I'm right now, if I have the players that I feel as if will win their own battle, their own duel, I'll not just pull a player back for the sake of it, because you got to really be cautious with sweeping. I mean, is sweepers actually doing the job, or are they literally just being a free player for the sake of it? Yeah. So sweeping is a lot more than just being that +1 and around the D. They got to have that communication with the fullback line, their keeper. They got to be able to read where the kick pass. You got to understand body shapes. You got to understand what players are right-footed or left-footed. If you have somebody delivering the ball with the right foot, does that player like an inside step or the outside step? How can you read you put that ball out? So the sweeper that you put as a sweeper has got to be a very, very, very talented player.
Yeah. How do you approach then beating the sweeper on the opposite side?
Yeah, so just straight off, a couple of things is if you're playing a 3-player full forward line, you got to try to engage that sweeper, okay? Because the sweeper wants to sit in front of the forward line, and they want to have that freedom of no one's around them. I'm free. I can focus on just cutting out ball. But if you're a forward trying to engage that sweeper automatically thinks, do I mark this player? Or, you got to engage the sweeper. So that's a big one for any coaches that's trying to beat a sweeper. You got to engage the sweeper. And you got to make the sweeper think that they have to mark now, which is what they don't want. Because usually a sweeper is a player that the reason why they're sweeping is because they don't like being that sticky player marker. So you got to engage. That would be usually number one.
How would you do that? How would you engage it? Like, do you mean pull up to them?
Yeah. So if you are, let's say you're full forward and there's a sweeper in front of you, right? So you have 2 corner forwards alongside you. So one of you have to go and like literally you mark the sweeper, or you have to run alongside the sweeper to make them think that they have to mark you. Because if you just let them float around the front of the D in front of you, they're going to sweep up ball. So you got to try. And the person that does engage the sweeper, they're not going to look for the ball. It's usually the 2 players behind them that make the run. and they have the space because the sweeper's been engaged, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Sorry, and then you were saying number 2. Then after that, what would be your next
Yeah, I mean, you have to obviously look at the quick ball. I mean, how fast can you transition from defense in first phases? So when I say first phases, we don't want to drop the ball to create a second phase. Then unforced errors is massive in football. If you are on a defense and you just drop the ball for a second, whether or not there's someone there to take it off you or not, you're slowing the play down. So to beat a sweeper, you got to move the ball fast as well. But when you are stopped, you're slowed up. A lot of teams nowadays will obviously be cute and they will foul high up the pitch to allow their sweeper to get back and set up. That's when you might want to go into the engage in the sweeper method. But move the ball fast is massive to beat the sweeper too.
Yeah. And then looking at it from a midfield perspective, what are you looking at for your midfielders to do? Are you looking for one attack and one drop, 2 attack at the same time, or
Again, depends. Usually the go-to method is one usually drives and one sits, but many teams would now, if they're in that defensive mode, they would have just 2 sitting and play just, let's say, 3 or 4 inside the 45. Depends what midfielders you have at your in your team. So you usually wouldn't play 2 outright attacking midfielders. That would be usually the general rule.
Yeah.
Not to play 2 attacking midfielders.
Fair, yeah. And I last thing then I suppose is well, two more things I want to look at is basically fitness training or fitness testing. But before we do that, I want to look at movement in the inside for forward line and getting the ball in, or movement in the forward line. And I suppose bringing up the wing backs and as well. Like, what's your whole perspective on transitioning from defense to attack with no sweeper, let's say, just in a normal game? How do you look at that?
Yeah, so when you're coaching the transition, you might want to put time on it, how long it takes you to transition from the defense to midfield to forward line. You want to look at if you have a +1 at the back, that's usually your go-to person to transition first. So if you're playing a sweeper, a +1, you know that person is always free. And you also are also thinking of the goalkeeper nowadays. The goalkeeper will actually be involved in that transition as well. And so you see the likes of Morgan Bagan and stuff, they'll actually come in, take the ball out, or they'll actually be the pass from the fullback to the halfback, and then it's them. So usually you want to look at the time it takes, the average time it takes to the transition. If you're looking at the fast transition, like Galway, we looked at Galway this year. They weren't actually focused on the really fast transitions. They were actually quite patient, and they were a really slow build up, and that worked really well for them. They were able to change the pace of the transition probably from the midfield to the half forward line with maybe that kick pass from John Daly into Comer. So they went about really slow build up play. But then if you look at the teams like Tyrone last year, the Dubs would be quite quick in transition. On top of transition, if you're talking about your backs, you're looking at width. And not only are you looking at width, you're looking at depth. You're looking to make the pitch as big as you possibly can when you're transitioning. So once that ball breaks down, you usually will have even your cornerbacks, your wing backs getting as wide as you possibly can. And not only are they going wide, but they're actually finishing up at the full forward line inside the over the 13-meter line. We look at Derry. Derry are fantastic at taking everyone back, 15 players behind the ball, 14 players behind the ball, breaking them down, and then come the end of the score, they would have 5 players inside their 13-meter line, the opposite 21-meter line. And what that does, when they're bringing 5 up there, they have to bring 5 opposition players, markers, with them as well, which creates loads of space in front of the D. Now, to do that method of transitioning, you have to have crazy conditioning. Now, I actually went to watch Derry against Monaghan in Armagh when Derry beat them this year, and their level of conditioning was absolutely fantastic. Even the bigger guys that maybe wouldn't have had top condition in the past, or maybe mightn't have looked as conditioned, they were still able to get up and down the pitch. Now, I don't personally know the S&C guy from Derry, but even by watching the warm-up, they really do look like a team that is going to just develop over the next couple of years, and I would not be surprised if they do grab an All-Ireland over the next 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, they were dominant. Okay, that's good. I suppose then that kind of actually leads on to the last thing of test and fitness. Now I know this kind of goes back, and it's the wrong time of the year to be doing it now.
Yeah.
Well, relatively, but how do you do that? What do you look at when you're fitness testing with teams? Yeah, how do you test? I suppose is the easiest way.
Yeah, there's a load of different methods. Different coaches are going to have different methods. I keep it very simple. I'm either going with two, I'm either going with a certain distance, and it's as quick as you can. I usually keep it to the 1200-meter test. The reason why I do the 1200-meter test is because it's really easy to line out on the pitch. Okay, so some people would like to go to the track and do a kilometer test, but I like to do all my fitness stuff, all running, all on the playing surface that you're going to play in the sport.
Yeah.
I think your body will thank you for that. I don't really see the need to do long track work in the off season. I would like to do all our fitness or all our run on the pitch. So what I would do is I measure out 1200 meters, and I would get the player to run that as quick as they can. And then the other method is a 5-minute test. That's just getting the player to. I would usually do the 5-minute test if it's an individual player, rather than a team setting, just because the reason the team setting is it's so easy. It's easy to line out. It's usually a massive box within the pitch. We can go in groups of sevens or eights. So that's really. And when I get that time, I'm able to do a little bit of equation work to see how we can progress. And then the important thing is when we retest, it's the same test you did the first time, because you don't want to be doing a 1200-meter test and then flipping it and doing a different test after that. You want to keep the test the same throughout the season. So whatever one you go for at the start of the year, try and just keep that for the year. And I don't just do the fitness test, and I would do an agility test. I would even do an anaerobic test. In an ideal world, I would do a speed test, but you're going to need a bit of equipment for that. Usually, I'm a minimalist in terms of equipment, pen and paper, a lot of maybe just Google Sheets and stuff. I wouldn't like to get too technical in terms of technology on the pitch. So that's on my test, 1200-meter test, and then two there.
Yeah. Okay. Nice. And just to clear it up, because and we're finished. We'll finish up after this. It just skipped out when you said you had the 5-minute test and you put them in a box, and it just skipped right at that second.
Right. Okay. Is it my Wi-Fi or is it? Let me see.
I don't know. It could be mine. It could be mine as well. But I know, to be honest, I picked up everything you said. It's just you said the 5-meter or the 5-minute test, and then you were talking about the box, and it just skipped for a second there on that.
Right. Yeah. So the two methods, 1200-meter or the 5-minute test. In a team setting, it's really easy to set up the 1200-meter test on the pitch. It's just a big box. And then when we get our scores, I would do a little bit of maths equations to break down their fitness levels and where they need to be. And I would have benchmarks for the team. And the more players we can get in that benchmark category, the better well equipped we are.
Yeah, lovely. I suppose that's really everything I wanted to cover today. And geez, I was dogging you there. You have to go back to bed after this, but
you're back on.
We have enough covered anyway. Thanks a million for jumping on, Shane. I suppose, where can people find you if they have any questions? Where's the best place to find you?
Yeah, so the GAAperiodization.com is where you would find any queries on online coaching for a GAA player. And then if you want to see any material that I create, any post or anything, is all Instagram, even Twitter. So Instagram is at Coach Shane Rice. Twitter's the same, at Coach Shane Rice as well. They're the main two forums. And I'm trying to actually dive in a lot more TikTok, because as we know, social media evolves big time. You got to stay up with the trends if you're self-employed online. So TikTok again is at Coach Shane Rice. I'm nearly sure you should be fine there. So give those a look. And again, the website is where you'll be any queries on the coaching.
Perfect. Okay, that's perfect. Thanks a million, Jen, for jumping on this week, and thanks guys for listening in. So this won't be out for a couple of weeks now. So I'll make sure to send it to you when it is out. But for anyone that is listening, I'd love if you could like on Spotify and share it on your story, and rate it, I suppose, on Spotify and iTunes as well, as it goes a long way for promoting the podcast. But that's everything from us this week, guys. I thank you all for listening in, and I will chat to you all again soon. Have a good one.